So here's a chap with many names. Some know him as Wally, others know him as Charlie, some Americans know him as Waldo. And yet despite being well known, the poor fellow has a rather nasty habit of getting lost, and thus people have to find him because, well, where's Waldo and all that jazz. His misadventures has often been the subject of interesting game books, where you'd have to seek the poor fellow out, and that's about all I know really. I dig deeper into the subject, but it'd be a pointless endeavor. Now chances are some of you folks are familiar with the NES game Where's Waldo, whether you've heard of it through a number of online video reviews, or you might have actually played the game, in which case you have my deepest condolences. Obviously the NES was ill-equipped to properly replicate the experience of the Waldo books due to the limited color palette, and quite frankly, anything else.
But a Sega Mega Drive, on the other hand, that might be the sweet spot. And so we have the Great Waldo Search for the Sega Genesis, a game that's also available for the Super Nintendo, and even made another attempt on the NES because sure, why not?
So the main goal of the game is rather simple. You have to find Waldo. Not only do you have to find Waldo, but you also have to find the scroll left behind by Wizard Whitebeard because, well, scrolls and stuff. You control the magnifying glass and move left and right on the playfield to look for Waldo and the scroll. Not only that, but you can also look for clocks to increase the time allotted for each level, as well as bonus points and Waldo's dog, who has his very own bonus stage where you can collect bonus bones for bonus points and stuff. There are 5 levels in the Great Waldo Search, 4 based on historical periods and a final level filled with Waldos, where instead of looking for Waldo himself because he's actually everywhere, you look for his sock. And yes, you still need to get the scroll. Beating the game will get you this woefully uninteresting congratulations screen, while running out of time gets you this less than woeful game over screen. Well, at least it tries to sound encouraging, so there's that.
The Great Waldo Search is a decent looking game and does a fair enough job of trying to mimic the style of the Waldo books, even if it is just a static image with a generous helping of copy and paste sprite work and minute animations here and there. Controlling the cursor, the magnifying glass on screen, is manageable because it moves about at a decent speed. It's not sporadic and all over the place like the NES game, so it's much easier for you to pick out stuff and click on it and that sort of thing. The sound's not that great. Mind you, the Super Nintendo version had pretty bland sound, but it somehow sounds worse on the Genesis. I guess it's par for the course. Now of course, the Great Waldo Search is not all that easy, as the maps do have some gracious amounts of red in them, and it's oftentimes easy for the scrolls to blend in with the rest of the background, due to it being mostly white with a bit of red. Waldo kinda sticks out like a sore thumb, so he's easy to find, but the scrolls are a little tougher to come by, especially when playing in the expert skill setting, where the scroll has a tendency to hide behind some object or another, and considering how small it is, it's kinda makes it a little tougher. But if you know where to look, it shouldn't take too long to clear, and thus all replay value is ultimately tossed out the window, because only 5 levels, multiple skill settings, there's not much to it. The thing with Where's Waldo, the Great Waldo Search, that concept in general, is that while they might have made for interesting and entertaining game books, the medium doesn't exactly transfer well to video game format. Simply put, the Great Waldo Search is boring, even for a searching game. What it does, for the most part, it does competently enough, but it doesn't make the game any more fun to play. There were moments during the hour I was playing this thing where I had to struggle to stay awake to get all the footage that I need for the purposes of this review. And that's how bad it was. On a technical level, it works just fine, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a game worth playing. Overall, if you enjoyed the Where's Waldo books, you'd be best served sticking with the Where's Waldo books. The Great Waldo Search for the Sega Genesis is unfortunately not worth your time in tracking down, and the replay value is quite low for a game like this. At the very least, it does a better job of recreating the Where's Waldo books than the Where's Waldo game on the NES. Though I suppose that's not really saying much.